All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Martha Alter Hines, and today I am with Tami Brunk. And Tami is a friend of mine and an astrologer and so much more. One value that one of many, many values that Tami and I share, I think, is a very strong commitment and connection with the earth, in addition to the cosmos. We both have the label astrologer, right? But we both are it's so much more than that for us. And I think part of the so much more is our connection with the earth and our connection with the spirit world, etc. So yeah, there's many other things that could be said about Tami, of course. I'm just so excited and happy to be having this conversation.
Me too, Martha. Yeah, I'm just so it's fun. It's so fun to be with you and so fun how the conversation began. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think there's a lot waiting to percolate.
Yeah, yeah. We already started the conversation. It's like, wait, we have to stop and we have to
Yeah,
record. Okay.
yeah. And so just to give context for everybody, the general topic that I think we're both feeling pretty passionately about and are going to discuss in a minute here is that for anybody who knows my work, my relationship with astrology is changing really fast. And so Tami, I don't know if you know this, but so I have my own Jupiter is at 2458 of Taurus in my ninth
Oh,
house.
wow.
That
Okay.
tell
Well,
you?
then wait. All right.
Yeah. So so I have my own Jupiter and my ninth house are very activated right now. And you know, my way of being a teacher, my calling, and even how I perceive everything is just doop, 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 doop. It's like Uranus and Jupiter are having a dance with my Jupiter. So they're having a party together.
Wow.
Yeah. And so as that's happening for me, Uranus conjunct Jupiter on my own Jupiter, one thing
Amazing.
that's common with that kind of combination, of course, is I'm feeling often like I'm changing so fast, and where are the people that I can connect with who are going to even understand what the heck I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah.
So Tami sent out an email. I'm on Tami's email list, and Tami sent an email out, I think, last week that caught my attention so fast because you were talking about the ways in which more I don't know what word to use. The ways in which sometimes astrology can actually be harmful and can actually be damaging if it's done in a way that's not honoring and mindful of life. I mean, that's one way to sum it up.
Mhm.
And so I immediately wrote you back and said, "Yep, yes." Right? And and then it dawned on, I mean, like it suddenly thought of you, like it really clicked for me. Oh, wow, yes, you are one of those people who wouldn't think I'm crazy. And actually, you have a whole host of your own experience and your own knowledge and your own wisdom that would be so enriching for me and enriching for everybody listening to this, I think. And so that's really what we're here to talk about is what is this that's emerging, and what are we feeling called into
Yeah.
in relationship with the cosmos and ourselves and the planet Earth and life itself, right? Like needs to change and is changing.
Yes.
What is
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you for your heart. I feel it so much.
Mm.
Um, and when we first started, right before we opened, do you want me to do a grounding? Does that
Yes, I
feel
do.
helpful?
I do. Yes,
Okay.
please,
All
please,
right.
please.
Because I was going to do a little grounding too. I always, and you probably do too. I know when I do a reading, I always open in prayer, invocation. It feels important. Sometimes I forget to close, which I think is probably problematic boundary
Mm.
wise.
Mm.
I'll be honest. But opening is so that way to me more and more feels so essential. So
Mm.
yeah, so go ahead and just invite everybody who's on to just go ahead and to just kind of close your eyes so your spirit can kind of move, our attention can move inward, and maybe put one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. And so we can be really rooted in the body as well. And I like hands on the body because then we can also have that sensation of kind of pressure or holding, and even imagining that we're pouring love into ourselves, blessing our bodies. I like to begin that way. And I like to open by really rooting into the body, because we live in a time where there's just so much flying around out there. So it's important just to very simply come back to the breath, come back to the body, and really begin to allow the body to just kind of root in. And so as we come home to the body, and as we come home to the present moment, as we begin to really tune into the frequency of love, and we really begin to drop into this soul space of deeper wisdom, just taking a moment to acknowledge the presence, the arrival of our most beloved, unconditionally loving guardians and guides and allies, anointed ancestors, sacred and holy spirits of the land, to Mother Gaia herself with her many names, and also our wiser selves, our higher wisdom, and as well just the aspect of our being that came here to be in service to Mother Earth and all of her creatures, all of her beings. And as we open today, just offering gratitude for the privilege, and may what comes through be very alive. May what comes through be filtered in such a way that it's very relevant for our current moment, and really helping us to be in that practice of just dropping whatever comes from the past that just doesn't serve anymore, and just letting that be true in this conversation as well. And may all that comes through just be good medicine for everyone who listens, including you and I, Martha, and may it serve the greater good. And so it is. Blessed be.
Thank you.
And if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, I just name what I'm feeling and seeing, which is, as we did this also right before we started recording, and this started happening then, and now it's happening again. I'm getting this image of myself as this beautiful tree with all animals all through the tree, including like antlers of elk and these birds coming to roost in the branches, and then I can feel the roots of the tree throughout the ground, and then I'm feeling the light of the heart of Mother Gaia Earth waking up and moving through those roots of the tree, and then through my whole being and my whole body, and connecting straight up into source, and then the light of my own heart lighting up and flowing through all of that. And yeah, just feeling really so much gratitude to be with you and to be with everyone listening. And I'm feeling how much comes alive just even connecting like this with you. It's so rich. Like,
Yeah, me too. I'm just like, wow, really feel
whoa.
it.
Like immediate recognition on a
Mhm.
level. So really
Mhm.
beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. That
So
was
cool.
fun. That was awesome.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, and I think what I want to say to everybody watching and listening is, I feel like it's like we're coming into a sister, brother, people of all gender circle right this moment. That's what I'm
Mhm.
feeling, and all types of life.
Yes, all types of life. Yeah, all the creation,
Mhm.
deeper than the human.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Infinite layers of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We're in a congregation. We have a congregation gathered.
Mhm. I think we've done this in many lifetimes. That's what I have that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Beautiful. All right. Well, like I could just stay in this zoned out place for a very long time. Um, but yeah, so maybe we could just start with, do you want to talk a little about, from this perspective of, life, like actual real life, how is what's going on with your relationship with astrology? What is particularly emerging for you? What's feeling important? Where's your soul being called?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking those questions. So, where my soul is being called, how astrology is showing up for me right now is I feel like I am kind of peeling back layers, and similar to what happened, what feels alive for me is what happens in the space of prayer before the session, where I start to begin to get inklings. What feels alive for me is the present moment when I'm giving the session, and what, again, that practice that I need to deepen again and again to open, to be able to smooth out or gentle or make more fluid the symbols and the meaning behind the symbols so that they're alive. And I want to be so clear that, even in the email I sent you, like I had some feelings about it afterwards, because I want to be so deeply humble around the reality that even when I talked about it in the email, I know I've done that. And I think the problem, when I say done that, I know that some of what I've done with astrology is probably constricted people or put them in boxes, or I'm aware of that. And I've struggled with that the whole time. So I don't want to focus just on what I'm struggling with, because again, I think it's about letting go of that and moving into what's emergent. And we talked about it in the version of astrology that I've been feeling for a long time emerging is, I would call it emergent astrology. I'm trained as a shamanic astrology. I call it emergent astrology because I feel that the archetypes and the planets, the seasonal signs, and the constellations and stars behind them are all living beings and energies and entities that we're here to co-create with. And they're alive, and they've been through 5,000 years of patriarchy just like we have. And they've got their scars, they've got the distortions and projections we put onto them that we're needing to withdraw. And there's healing that needs to happen there too. So emergent astrology is very humble. And on the level that what comes through is how present can I be in the moment of this session? How daring and courageous can I be in the moment, in terms of, it's moment by moment. Like, oh, I think it's like that. I was saying this to you before, like, okay, I'm looking at the moon. This is what I think Luna or the moon is. And I have to be soft enough in my body to say, oh, but this is what's coming through now.
Yes.
So I'm not saying I'm there yet totally, but that's where I'm going. And then, that it might be something completely different. And hopefully it's something completely different than what I saw before. And because it's alive, and it's like, and I've been working deeply with the Venus cycle, and again at another level, and what came through in the beginning was Venus is a verb, so they are beings, but they're also verbs, like we are. I'm a verb, you're a verb, not just a noun. So that I'll stop there, because I could go on and on, except with one thing to say, and this is really pioneering work you're doing that I'm so excited to talk to you about, because you've been sharing more about what you're doing and it blows my mind. Is it's that in one-on-one soul to soul readings, like really cultivating the ability to bring in, and with that person, because it's our souls dancing, what's alive and what's new and present and real. But it's also, what are the group context containers, the circles of community, sacred community, where we can more powerfully dream together. And, there's things you can do in a one-on-one context. There's things we can only do in our relationship to divine. And there's things we can only do in the right context of sacred circle. So I'm interested in those three, and what it means to be in integrity with those three ways. So we emerge the new systems. Yeah.
So, yeah, and clearly we can go more deeply into wherever we're called here, but I'm curious from your perspective, what you mean when you say the work I'm doing is pioneering, because to me, it is very different from almost anything I've known, but your background is different from mine, right? So my background is from evolutionary astrology almost entirely. And then I spent a year studying with Heather Ensworth, who I would say Heather is the closest to my her way of being with astrology is very, very close to mine, but mine is taking off even from that. And not, I mean, I think Heather would probably, follow right along with where I'm being led. I don't think she would disagree with me. Not speaking for her, but anyway, I'd say that's the closest. And then, Kaylin, your work, Definitely that's very much in line with my way as well. Different, but in line. But the shamanic astrology is not what I'm trained in. So
Right.
when I think of how I'm being called into being with the beings of the cosmos as alive beings, I think of that as actually relatively similar to some aspects of shamanic astrology, but I'm not trained in shamanic astrology, so I don't know. um,
Mhm.
so I'm curious what, we can fill the audience in
Yeah,
on
yeah,
what we
for
were talking
sure.
about, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and when I say you're pioneering, I mean, before we started talking, and I'm assuming your audience kind of knows this about you, you were sharing more about the structure and the layout and the container of the group you're doing right now, which sounded beautiful, powerful.
Hmm.
And so I say pioneering on a lot of levels, but part of it that you're weaving in, the constellations as well as the seasonal signs, and you're working with Venus and Mars and the Earth. You mentioned before we talk, you might talk about that more, and a kind of a reconciliation or a healing process of withdrawing projection. You know,
Yes.
you know, right. So we'll maybe talk. I think that's really powerful conversation, maybe to revisit. But shamanic astrology is by its nature animistic. And so from an animistic lens, of course, it already you begin to perceive of as other personhoods or other beings, you begin to see the consciousness in every being. And so, it lends itself. But also in shamanic astrology, one of the actually from the beginning when I've done readings, this is one of the things I always lean on the most is every time I give a reading, I will say, this has evolved for me. Like I've started saying it this way, that it's literally a being, that they are beings, that they are their own. So that Venus herself, or I'll be more specific, like a sign, like the sign of Taurus, over the last 5,000 years, think of it as like she's a woman, Taurus, or she's the male version, and she's lived through 5,000 years of patriarchy. What's her experience been like? That's one of
Yes.
the first things I ask. What has been the experience for a Taurus man or woman or a non-binary individual over the last 5,000 years? And going in the gate when you do the reading, well, that's something, if a person in that reading has strong Taurus, those are the kinds of themes that they're here to heal and clear and compost,
Wow.
right?
Taurus has context, a
So I
historical.
see them as beings that have a longer life cycle, so that
Mhm.
the equivalent of the Taurus individual, it's just like me in my lifetime, right? You get it? It's like macro, micro. But
Yes.
so I adopted what I learned in shamanic astrology, and in shamanic astrology, it's just understood that at the turning of the ages, we're here to, dream this all onward. And also the embedded belief that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. Those were two principles that I took to heart deeply. And then I evolved onward in my own ways using dreaming and groups working with the dreaming process. I mentioned with my Sky Apprentice program as far back as 2015, and then many other courses focused on specific, like the moon and Ixchel and certain deities in their highest expression. And, I did like 7 different courses with asteroids, planets, constellations, and the dreaming process, weaving them together. So as a group, we would open our channels to what the new emergent expression of these beings were, which sounds, again, very similar to what you're doing. And I
Definitely.
think it's exciting. And I think but I don't think I actually don't think it's new. The reason I say that is because astrology couldn't be a living science if astrologers weren't always supposed to be doing this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're
Yeah.
just doing what we're supposed to do in the part of us that is an astrologer.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, so we could go a little more deeply into that, the healing with the planets topic that you just brought up, if that feels right.
Healing with the planets.
I mean,
Sure.
the way I do
Oh,
this, there've been a lot of I've been called in this astrology course that I'm holding to be doing essentially radical forgiveness ceremonies with each
wow.
of
I
the
love that.
planetary beings. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. Is that something you have done or have heard of other people
Well,
doing or?
I mean, I don't know if everybody listening to you already knows the stories, but I would love to hear first from you if you don't mind. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're but
Yeah.
still, I
Yeah.
just think it's so like, I'm so curious about more like radical forgiveness. and you were talking about the Earth and Mars and Venus, and you talk as much as you can about that, and I'm sure I'll have plenty to say, but I want to hear more about it.
Yeah. So again, so I started this astrology course in February of this year, 2024, and it's a channeled course, right? So the spirit world showed me the vision of it and gave me the directive almost a year ago in summer of 2023, and they showed me exactly how it's supposed to be held and blah blah blah. And what they've said all along is that it's actually a portal of remembering. So it's teaching, quote unquote, teaching astrology, but really what it's about is it's a portal of us all coming back into this reality that we are ancient wisdom keepers of life, of existence. That's what we are. And so the course is really almost like a front. I mean, not really, but it's almost like a disguise in a certain way for the real point, which is that it's this spirit held and spirit directed portal of coming back into the remembering, into this time of remembering. And so part of that process for me, again, with, Jupiter, Uranus coming to my Jupiter in my ninth house and that whole thing, is that I was shown the vision of how to hold this space ahead of time for sure. But as I've gone along, I've also been told in the moment, oh yeah, forgot to mention, also you need to, blah, blah, right? So one of those, oh yeah, here's another obvious thing that you need to do, was that last month, so we started in February, and we were going month by month. We started in February, but starting in March, we started with month by month focusing on whatever seasonal sign the sun is in, and then the corresponding planets.
Yes.
And corresponding constellations that the sun happens to be in at that point.
Yes. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
That's how I did Sky Apprentice. It's so fun. That's so cool. Oh my gosh. It's so
cool. So March was Pisces, Jupiter, Neptune, and the constellation of the Water Bearer. April was Aries, Mars, and the constellation of the Fish. And this month is Taurus, Venus, and the constellation of Aries, the Ram, celestial plowman, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So last month when we were focused on Mars, the other thing that I'm doing in this course is, and I'm really curious if you have done this or know of anyone, but the other thing I'm being told to do in this course is to include the moons. So I'm including a lot of information in the beginning of the month on the actual astronomy and the science of the planet, right? So, for example, with Mars, I started doing the research on the actual planet.
Looking at the image, having them gaze on the image, listen to the sound of it. Yes, deeper intimacy with the planet.
Yes, exactly. And in the case of Mars, NASA has sent rovers there, and so that's a whole topic. But anyway, but we have videos, we have so much image, so many images of the actual being,
so cool,
the land of the place Mars, right? And so I was watching those videos from NASA and all of that, and then I started researching the moons, and so of course we know that Mars, in terms of the mythology, it's associated with god of war. I mean, also the god of agriculture, but there's a lot of this, Mars is the malefic and the violence and all of that, catastrophe and all of those things, bombs and all of that. Okay. So I'm starting to feel into that. I'm starting to look at these videos of the actual land of this place, which NASA talks about as being actually very similar to a lot of places on Earth, like such as Iceland, where I've been to Iceland. And Iceland is magical and amazing, and I love it there. And so I started to really start to feel called to actually be with this land of this being the way I feel called with the Earth. And then I learned about its moons. And so Mars has two moons.
Mm.
Teeny tiny, and they're thought of probably as originally having been part of the asteroid belt. But their names are what really got me. Their names are Phobos and Deimos, which mean panic and fear, panic or fear and dread of war.
Wow. And dread of war.
Yes. So fear, panic and fear associated with war and dread of war. Because Phobos and Deimos mythologically
Oof.
are two of the sons of Eris, Eris, the
Right.
Greek.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paris.
Yeah. And so I was like, wow. Okay. So there's this like precious, literally precious being here.
Yeah. They're precious beings.
A being. Just like the earth is a being, right? It's like that's
Mhm.
super upsetting,
Totally.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we've named it after a god of war, also a god of agriculture, but a god of war. And then we've given it its moons names of dread, panic, and fear.
Right. What a projection.
Like, oh wow. And then I can start crying again, right? It is so upsetting to me. What have we been doing? And
What have
then
we been
over here,
doing?
the astrologers calling it a malefic.
Yeah.
Like, oh no. Right. So then what dawned on me, of course, was like, okay. So the spirit world said, you need to do radical forgiveness. And not only radical forgiveness for like, not only, so what they were saying is you need to ask this being for forgiveness. But
Mm.
also in that,
Mm.
it's not only Mars that has had all this projected onto it. All of us have had things projected onto us, right? So it's like, so it really came back to this emerging soul song of all of us, of everything that's coming back into alignment.
Mm.
And so what really came alive last month was this need to hold sacred space of radical forgiveness for all of ourselves, everybody, everything,
Mm.
including the spirit world asking for forgiveness from us that we have had. I mean, how many labels put on us, or how many times have, in many past lives, our own voices not been,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
identities projected onto us that are just not accurate, or blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's what I ended up doing in the last month. And the channeled part of the course was the spirit world basically had us do a radical forgiveness ceremony where they first surrounded us each individually and asked for
Mm.
our forgiveness. And then
Mm.
we held space for the being, the fourth planet
Wow.
from the sun, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
um, for forgiveness or whatever it needs. Like, I don't know if it needs whatever we did our best to honor it, to be
Oof.
present with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was Mars. And then I was telling you today, now we're in the month focused, theoretically on Venus.
Yeah.
And what came alive though in the channeling today on Venus was actually, it just blew me away. I was not expecting this at all. What the spirit world did this time was because, okay, so on one side of the earth, we have this being we call Mars, who we've called a malefic. Bad. We've called it bad.
Bad. You're all bad. Yeah.
Like literally, we call it bad planet.
Yeah.
And on the other side of us, we have Venus, who we call good planet.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right. Oh, right. So
Right?
messed up.
It's
Yeah.
like, what are you
And
doing?
Jupiter. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Terrible. So, and then over here, so of course, what goes on when Venus is associated with the divine feminine, and it's only supposed to be good, and it's only
Right.
supposed to be sweet and nice and la la la.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow,
Anemic.
what'd you say?
Anemic.
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 Lacking in power or blood.
Right. Yes. So when we want to evoke even the divine feminine in our own being, which is what we are, we are masculine and we are feminine, we are all of it. What the feminine is only supposed to be sweet and nice and docile and patient and oh no, Kali, Durga.
Relational. Uh-uh.
What?
Full spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. So So in our month on Venus, what of course we learned about last week in the more cognitive part was that, well, Venus itself, the planet itself is the hottest planet in the solar system. It's like has all these volcanoes. It's real, it's a constantly, in storms, and its atmosphere is so dense that, NASA can't send a rover there because it would get crushed.
Right. It's raw power.
Yeah. So yeah, very, very, very powerful, very passionate, all those things. And not just it's all of the above, right? It's so many different ways of being and so many different energies. So anyway, today in the channeling, what came alive, again, I was not expecting this. That same the similar a similar circle was formed. So what came in this time was a group of, oh, they're balloons. A group of infinite beings, of infinite manifestations of the divine feminine and infinite manifestations of the divine masculine. And they created this circle, which created a double helix around Venus, the Earth, and Mars, all together, all three as one. And then what they basically did was they had us hold sacred space for all three of those beings, not really with, not giving us any particular answers or like meaning of like what's true or not true here, but
bring them together.
yes,
Bring them
yes.
together.
I mean, I'm still digesting it. I don't really know how to even analyze it, like, or I don't even feel necessarily right analyzing it, but I'll stop there because I feel like you have something that is going to
Oh,
add.
no, 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 no. I wanted you to just complete anything. It's just
Oh,
so powerful.
mm.
Do you ever use the Ho'oponopono prayer, or do you feel like that's appropriative?
I haven't personally felt called to do that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it has come up. People have commented on that in certain ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no. Yeah, if it hasn't come up for you, it's not for you to do it, right? I mention it only because I've been working with a mentor and an indigenous practitioner in ancestral healing work, and she has been really directing me to use that a lot, and I've been using it with my ancestors, and it's been very powerful. Really, really, it is a alchemical procedure. So, but that's just me. But the radical forgiveness, no, that's so powerful to me what you're doing. And the first thing that comes in too is literally, we think of when Venus and Mars meet in the sky from our view, that's one thing. But in what you're describing astrologically, what that would look like is opposition. They would be opposite one another. And there's so much we're missing because we're so keyed in on certain things that we've just, developed tunnel vision, I think, as astrologers, that we need to almost like break everything open.
Yeah.
And I think when you're channeling, that's why that's so powerful, because you're practicing always being open to something that's surprising, that's new, that spirit is showing you. But yeah, that's so cool. I just love it. Yeah, what else to say? No, I think it's so powerful. You're doing that and really moving, especially, with Mars. And that the healing needs to happen. And what I've felt, because it's fascinating. You work with Venus today. And of course, I've been working with Venus for the last 14 years, but I still feel like I get so frustrated because there's the mind and there's all the training I have that gets in the way. I guided a small group of women over 8 months, and I could feel how in the beginning it was very clear, simple. And then I observed how over time it was like more and more information that was starting to like cloud everything. And that had to do with my insecurity around, well, they need to have all this information. That's my Gemini moon, I think. But what I felt in the beginning, which is such a deep teaching, what she was showing, because when I work with the Venus cycle, it's through the Inanna Descent story and Descent and Renewal, which I'm already also like, asking my guides, asking Inanna and the greater whole, like, what is her true story? What's the root? What's the origin? Who is she really? But in that journey, I had the context, the container set up very clearly that 5 hours every month on a Sunday, we would do ceremonial work. And then 2 Fridays, we would have 90-minute sessions, and it was supposed to be really potent. And the women who were coming to it, it wasn't really about like it wasn't like a counseling space. You know what I'm saying? This is one of the things I've had to articulate a lot is,
I know.
right, this is a facilitated space for people who actually have some, who are in the mystery. They want to be in the mystery. They want to be evolving the mystery. But with women's circles, a lot of times what happens is that we want it to be then a place for all this personal healing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because that's natural. But what started happening, I observed, was that she was telling me, she was showing me, she was like, yeah, you literally, one of the women in the circle was wanting there to be more glue, more connectedness, which is so good and natural. And my insecurity came in a little bit, and it was like, well, it's true. People have so many distractions, time's moving so fast. We probably need to meet more often. So I kind of listened to the human voice rather than the Venus voice, and I added that on. And what happened, I saw it happening, was that before that, there was so much spaciousness that each individual in the circle had the space to literally have that really strong, deep connection to the mystery of her. And then as soon as we started having more talk, more communication, more teaching, more detail, I saw how it just made it all very dense and confusing. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
I even, I like to focus on what's positive. I don't want to spend too much time there. But what I was learning from it is I could feel the difference between the way we started, where admittedly she was up high in the morning sky, and now she's moving into the great below. And I think that makes sense because we're in the lower chakra center. So there's a lot of noise there, right? That's just part of what happens. But when she was higher, I could feel it. It's just like, what am I getting to with this? It's like, she showed me, she said, basically this Venus work, you have to keep going simpler, simpler, simpler. Really all it is this is about being steeped in the feminine divine. You're being steeped in the feminine divine and I'm getting chills, coming to know her intimately. And it's also a procedure when you go through the gates. It's simply a procedure that you're going through. And beyond that, it doesn't need to be that much more complicated.
Yes.
Because she's guiding us.
Yes.
And so, I got to see the places where, and I'll be transparent, because it's an 8 months journey. And I, like so many, are like, okay, I'm tired of doing these little courses here and there. I want to charge more, have a more intensive container so I can go deeper. But I had so much of my stuff around charging more. I felt like I had to prove myself. And of course, it came through with Venus, who also has all these projections around money, resource, love. She's been trafficked in her way, as has been Inanna. And I use traffic because, I think you would really also like, if you don't already follow her or look at some of what she's doing, Z Earth Star. She does some really beautiful work. The word follow is weird, but but the work that she's doing is resonant. And she had a vision that money literally was a goddess and that she was being trafficked.
Wow.
And she was flying by her window and she was trying to get in, actually. And Z was just like, and then she finally let her in and she's like, look, I want to work with the healers. I want to work with the star seeds, but you guys keep your windows shut and they're trafficking me.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. And it is the same for Venus and Inanna. You can tell that they've been anything sacred, it's been used in certain ways. So the radical forgiveness, I think what I'm mostly, I think that's so powerful. I just love that you're doing, especially for the sacred masculine, because it does translate to all of us. And specifically, I do think it translates to men. If we've been projecting that onto male bodies the whole time.
Yeah. They're bad, we're good. What?
They're bad, we're good. Yeah. Oh, it's just so painful. I had that conversation yesterday with a former partner. Literally the conversation. And again, I caught myself in that place of like, but you're not really listening. And he's just saying with the bear conversation, he's like, well, I understand, but it's also sad the way people are sharing it, as if all men are this way. And, you know, it is sad. It is sad. It's reinforcing.
And then we're all also only allowed to be good, right? Like and
Right.
good in a very particular way. Like that's only a certain thing.
Yes.
Yeah, really
Yes.
confusing all the way around.
Mm, yeah. Whew.
Mhm.
Wow. And we are well into our conversation, and we've only really talked about Mars, Earth, and Venus, right?
Yes, well, there's a lot there, but yes. Yeah.
Only
Only.
only these three massive beings. But yeah, no, it feels like the need for, I mean, I just so deeply admire. I have my own practices of channeling, but more and more, like I love Nancy Rebecca's work. She's really wonderful. She's an intuitive. More and more, I do find that I do think that I had a teacher at one point, one of my main teachers when I started. I said, so what do you think about astrology and channeling? And he was like, oh, no, 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 we're not channelers. And I was like,
Maybe you're not him.
right. Well, maybe that explains some things, but it was not true because he had channeled an entire system.
Oh,
But it
wow.
was the old boy kind of like, good old boy kind of like, oh no, we're not channels. You know, there's this whole, because it's a very feminine art. It doesn't mean men don't do it. Men do it, but it's not quite as, respect. It wasn't in his generation as respected as, the intellectual aspect of astrology.
So that actually kind of maybe segues to something else I'd love to get your take on. I sent you a little bit about this, and my audience will, I think, know this is happening. So, next Wednesday, May 15th, I'm doing this big gathering because a being that has been calling to me is this being of the Oort cloud.
Yeah, love that.
And yeah, and so this being's name, I probably not pronouncing it correctly at all. It's a Hawaiian name, Leleaku Hanua.
Mm.
And so another component of what I'm feeling really called to in astrology is similar to what you're just saying, which is that typically when we're engaging with any being of the cosmos, especially these newer ones that are, being quote unquote discovered by astronomers,
Mhm.
we've had a tendency to have expert astrologers go out and research them and do really beautiful work. I mean, really, truly,
Mhm.
I honor those
Yeah.
people who have done that.
Yes.
Really, really appreciate that they have truly appreciate
Mhm.
they've done that. What I'm feeling called to though is now to be holding space for co-remembering of these beings. So
Mhm.
not just, like me, I'm an astrologer, I go out, I research
Yes.
thing, and then I announce to the world, okay,
Right.
Lelia Kuhanua means blah. And
Co-remembering. Thank you. Yes, exactly. That's right. That's
yeah,
beautifully stated. Beautiful.
yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, so anyway, so bottom line, what I'm going to be doing in that free gathering is I've already compiled basically a free mini course where I've put all of the resources
Mhm.
I can find or that I've found so far
Mhm.
in a teachable course.
Nice.
And I'm inviting people to add to those resources and to add their own thoughts, their own feelings. And then in the live gathering, which will also be recorded, um, I'm going to do similar to how I do it in my astrology course, which is I'm going to give the cognitive, like here's what I've learned so far, at least, about the astronomy of it, the meaning of the name, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm going to channel a time for us to actually be with this being
Mhm.
Dark Cloud and
Beautiful. Yeah.
see what comes through in ourselves individually as the whole collective, as the group, and beyond May 15th. I mean, way beyond.
Yes.
I'm hoping
Yes.
that it'll be like a living thing.
Mhm.
I don't know what to call it. Like let's try this out.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's what's most fun, right? That's so fun. Yeah, absolutely. It's and yeah, I've been doing that with my dream work with but the word co-remembering is just so powerful. So powerful. Yeah. And that you're doing it with these beings who are just coming into our consciousness.
Mhm.
I love that. I think that's where we're at as a collective. It's what needs to happen.
Mm. Beautiful.
I love that you're doing that. I think, and again, and also expanding it beyond the kinds of bodies that we've been collectively noticing and observing. We need to, again, widen our scope,
Mm.
break outside of our boxes as your Uranus Jupiter kind of activation is like, oh yeah, open it up. It's interesting you say this though. Again, in the last 8 months, I've been very quiet myself. I haven't been as public, and that's been very necessary to hold the container for the Venus group, but also just for myself. I'm in that zone. But I've noticed, I've been very clear, like I told you before, there's very few, but there are a handful of people that I have been observing what they're doing. You're definitely one of them because I think you have such integrity in what you do. And there's Keone, who is someone who, Keone, yeah. And I really appreciate the way he did very similarly. It was literally looking at the age of Lyra, because according to their traditions, for various reasons, they would say we're moving from and Keone, for people who don't know, comes from a native Hawaiian lineage that from goes back 20,000 years, a living lineage. He's a young, individual, and just brilliant teacher. And so the way he opened that circle is very similar. He had, some like an elder who opened in ceremony with chanting, and then he had a young woman who did it the same through their procedures and opened the space. And then he shared what he knew about Lyra. And then the really cool part of this, right? Here's some confirmation for you too, was that there was a very powerful moment where he said it's the fifth element, because this is the fifth age. So this is the place where he curated that moment where we all co-remembered, was
Mm.
where he said, okay, if it's the fifth element, what is the fifth element to you?
Mm.
And so then he put on some music, and he had each of us just kind of really tune into what is the fifth element, and really then to just move into that zone. Like, how is this live in my body? How does this fifth element live in my body?
Mm.
And so, and then, each of us at certain points over that time, it was a 3-part series, we're really in that practice of becoming that. So it was co-remembering, and it was also this deeper thread that, when you're talking before, I'm like, yes, we come together as circles of sovereigns, in
Yeah.
that what Thich Nhat Hanh would refer to as the interbeing. We're learning interbeing and co-remembering. And so you have to have a lot of sovereignty to do that. So he was teaching us sovereignty. He wasn't saying this is what it is. And not just intellectual sovereignty, but that each of us are here to embody our version.
Yes.
And for any of the archetypes, there are as many versions as there are beings to embody that, right?
Exactly.
So we got to live that, and that was a great teaching.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, it feels resonant with what you're doing, right? I'm getting chills. It's just like, good on you. Like, just, getting this. And so I think it's the ceremonial container that gets created around it. And when I start doing my work more broadly again, which it's not going to just be Venus, I can't just limit it to Venus. And this is where I have big, monstrous resistance inside of me. I'm like, I won't be narrowed into something anymore. It's felt a bit restrictive, right? All gratitude for the privilege. But I will be doing, similar kinds of contexts and containers, because I think it's, absolutely necessary. I can't do this by myself. We're not here to do it by ourselves. And, but I think that what you said too, it's the remembering. I always think anamnesis is the Greek word
Mm.
it's a great word for remembering what the soul already knows.
Mhm.
And that
Yes.
feels like, right, what you're doing is helping people, like the opposite of amnesiac, anamnesis.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes. All a big gigantic yes.
But yeah, an Oort cloud too. Like I'll be so curious. I'm gonna try to make it to the 15th. I'm so curious and I'd love to be engaged in your conversation.
Yeah, I would love for you to be there. That'd be amazing. Yeah, the Oort cloud, my soul just goes crazy over the Oort cloud.
You know it's good when there's that love. There's that level of love of just like my soul goes crazy. Like meeting a new friend, like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I hear you.
Like we know Sedna, a lot of people talk about Sedna. But Sedna's not the only known Oort cloud being actually out there, and nobody talks about the other ones. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
like
like,
members of our family that we forgot.
mm-hmm.
Like, here you are. Oh my gosh, you've been gone so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Great.
Yeah.
Anything else you're feeling that your soul is feeling called to in your own soul song, you're feeling like you need to
My own soul song.
say?
What do I want to say? I feel like I think it's time for us to stop being so lonely as humans,
Mm-mm-mm.
to just think it's just us. And I don't mean that I just think it's so important to be gentle with all this,
Mm.
and that's what I feel with you that I really love is a gentleness and a humbleness of we're all kind of trying to do the best we can. Um, and I just feel, we're so not alone as humans, and there's the earth realm around us that's just filled with living beings. There's the Oort clouds, there's the asteroids, there's this growing family of intelligences that we get to be in communion with. And I guess I just deeply value the opportunity to come together soul to soul at this level and this quality of conversation, because I think the intimacy of a conversation that's rooted and grounded is it's just very nurturing and healing. And I just think, so I think both things are healing and nurturing. Um, we're verging out into the wild unknown, and I think grounding from the heart, like feeling like when you're talking and I'm talking in the beginning, to just feel that resonance.
Yeah.
Um, and I think when I think about your work, and I know this is your soul song you asked about, and maybe I hope it's not crosstalk, but I'll just say I just appreciate in myself and I appreciate in others a certain level of grounding. Um, because when we're working with high mystery, what a lot of people don't realize, and this is natural because so many people are waking up right now, it could be a big high to wake up to all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what people don't realize is the most intuitive people are profoundly grounded,
Mm.
very grounded. You have to and I'm working on that every day. That does not come naturally to me.
Mm.
But I mean grounded in knowing who we are, being in a constant integrating of our own personal experiences, and having as an intention that we serve the greater good and continually returning to that
Mm.
feels really important. And I say that just on the level that, again, I really have a lot of compassion for people who are waking up to all these new systems right now. And that's part of where the email came from that you'd read was I have a little of a guardianship or a protectiveness for the people who are just waking up to it. And there's just so much out there, and it can be so easy and kind of dangerous to get lost in it, what you might call the astral field, which is not high level spiritual teachings, but kind of low grade. It's just it can be very distracting, and it's already so easy to get distracted. So, my prayer would just be that this wisdom that wants to come through that is so helpful and useful. There's a reason people are waking up. We need it. We need to remember the whole family of creation and our place in it. So, yeah, I think for people to really pay attention to what happens in our bodies when we hear a person speak, and for we ourselves, if I speak, I want to be in my heart and in my body.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and I think that also comes as we get older sometimes.
Mm.
There's something, you know, as we get older where it shifts, it deepens. We hope we're going to become the elders. And I'm glad about that. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
guess that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much. Um, so two last things. One, so you offer readings, right? And what's the best way for people to reach you, be in contact?
TamiBrunk.com is a way to reach me. And that's right now, like as I'd mentioned, I'm completing the Venus work, so I'm still kind of looking at what comes next, and probably I will be very soon putting out something that's around Sisters North and South, which is like a monthly offering that also is supportive of Indigenous female leaders. In every month that I offer these astrological programs, that there's a percentage that goes to Indigenous female-led organizations. So I started it. I kind of had to stop for a minute. So look for that. That's going to be coming up soon, and other things that I'm dropping in and seeing what comes next.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that's a
Yeah.
big component actually of who you are and the work you do also is the supporting Indigenous voice. How would you phrase that?
Yeah, I would say supporting Indigenous voices, Indigenous communities, and also equal to that, anytime I've worked with Indigenous people, I'm always humbled and reminded that our hunger for the indigenosity outside of us needs to be fed by us connecting into our own indigenosity and our own ancestral roots, and that comes first.
Yes. And that
Yeah.
also kind of comes back to what you're saying about being in their bodies, being grounded, being
Yes,
as
being
beings of
sovereign.
earth and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Mhm.
and honoring I think of it often like spirit is underneath one foot, my spirit lineage or ancestry is underneath one foot, and my blood ancestry is under the other. I think of it that sometimes when I open directions. And the blood lineage is really important. And when we're spiritual people, we can get so caught in the past lives, which are important. But the blood lineage, we're born in this body for a reason.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of powerful work we can do in that realm that I think is next level. And I would say my other passion is healing the memories that live in the land. And
Yeah.
so that's why I've started doing a lot more earth gridding work, even with some land back projects. And that's been my deeper teaching, honestly, for this last 7 years, is how do we heal the memories in the land, the trauma that lives in the land? How do we do that? And that's the next level, I think, of what we're going to be up to as humans.
Mm. Well, we could have a whole conversation just about that. I have many experiences personally with
I'm not surprised. Okay. We can clearly talk for 5 hours here. So yeah.
yeah. To be continued.
To be continued.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm keeping my mouth shut because it would just go. Yeah.
Well disciplined. Thank you, warrior.
Wonderful. Well, okay. So would you feel right closing us out?
Oh, sure. I'll do a real simple closing.
Yay.
Thank you for the honor. Okay, so as we close today, just once again, just closing our eyes and just arriving back into our bodies and taking a moment to just breathe and offering gratitude for the wisdom that's come through this container, in part because you and I, Martha, are here, but also because of all those who listen later, that you also are influencing everything that comes through, and to all the sacred beings that we all have such a privilege of cultivating intimacy with: Venus, Mars, the Earth, and the Oort clouds and the asteroids and all the planetary beings, and Mother Earth herself, and the lands where we live, and the original ancestors and our own blood ancestors, and the beautiful plants and trees, and just the whole family of life around us, just celebrating, honoring what an immense, immense gift it is to come present, and offering special love for, again, for Mars in that conversation today about that, just honoring the healing that's happening between masculine and feminine, that is the healing that's happening in our relationship with these sacred energies. And may that healing continue within us, to just serve the greater good in the future generations. So it is.
So it is. Thank you so, so, so much.
Mm.
Deeply
Mm.
nourishing for me. On so many
Oh,
levels.
you're so welcome. And I'm just so honored.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everybody watching. Please, we would love to have you join in the conversation and let us know what is arising for you and all of that. See you all
What a pleasure.